In the beginning of the 20th century, identity becomes an issue like never before. As I said in the beginning of this talk, identity is something which is very relevant in an artist's practice today. On the International Workshop, we often work with identity and we examine the word, the concept, through different perspectives, different media. But in the beginning of the 20th century, the reflection on identity often happens through this negative identification, which Said mentions in Orientalism. So the idea is basically, I am not everything which you are, even if I am the one who created your identity. But in the beginning of the 20th century, we have Freud writing about dreams, and psychoanalysis is born. Many of the artists at the time are immensely influenced by the fact that their own identity can be used as subject matter. And the artists of the avant-garde, they embrace this image of the other, or they identify with the other as a provocative gesture. The non-rational, the forbidden, the rejected, the primitive infancy madness. So for instance, we have Van Gogh's famously portraying himself with one ear cut off. Or we have Picasso who portrays prostitutes in this state of gradual transformation into cubist figures. This painting, you probably know, is very famous precisely because Picasso wanted to teach the public about cubism in itself. We have Dali, who personifies madness, explores the unconscious, or Magritte, working in a very similar way. And talking about identity and the rejected or the non-rational, we need to talk about a whole series of German artists who were working in the beginning of the century, pre-war in Europe. So here we have Max Ernst working somewhere in between the movements of German Expressionism and Dada. We have Emil Nolde portraying masks and often talking about these beings from parallel universes, invisible beings. We have Kirchner portraying this promiscuous atmosphere or nightmarish situations like the painting with the hands cut off. Because we must not forget that there's a threatening atmosphere in Europe at this time. And at this time, many of the artists that we see in this presentation have to enroll into the army, and some of them actually manage to escape precisely by stating madness or emotional instability. And there's, of course, a few and only a few artists who would comment on women's rights to express their opinions. In this case, Sylvia von Harden as the other. We have Max Beckmann participating in what becomes this custom of many artists presenting themselves really provocatively in ugly or unacceptable poses. We also have Marcel Duchamp famously dressing up as his alter ego, a woman. She's called Rose c'est la vie, Eros is life, a very typical thesis by Duchamp. In this portrait, he's photographed by Man Ray. And when we mention Freud, naturally, we have to go to Vienna. There's a lot of artists working there at the time, painting this idea I talked about as the other, the rejected, the ugly. A self-portrait by Egon Schiele. Or this one with Oskar Kokoschka crossing his arms and looking very defiantly at the public. This was created in 1937 as a response to Hitler's exhibition. because Hitler did organize a very famous exhibition called Degenerate Art or Entartete Kunst, where the purpose of the exhibition was to let the German people know that some forms and pieces of art were not acceptable by this society of the highest race. During the Second World War, and in the name of the Entartete Kunst campaign, there was over 20,000 pieces of artwork confiscated and artists arrested or harassed by Hitler's regime. Some images from the exhibition.